Last 12 months has not been the best for London, let's face it. Last 12 months has not been the best for the mayor. The last 12 months, the mayor didn't win any votes. The last 12 months, the mayor didn't go from being, oh my gosh, what a great, and everybody around the world is talking about him and thinking about what a fantastic job he's doing. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of days you get some weird phone calls. And this is when some big names kind of call in and say, hey, you know what? We're not calling to give you money or anything. We're just kind of calling because we want to know the alternative and your name is popping up. Can we have a meeting together? And when that happens, that's when you know some of the people of power behind closed doors are maybe testing out to see how serious you are, if this is just a marketing gimmick, or if you're really serious about it. And I don't think it would be a marketing gimmick with the amount of money you put into this thing, getting the buzz, getting the work you're putting, 12-hour days, nonstop, back to back to back to back to back.
I see revenue streams everywhere there, Patrick. I see infrastructure levies for creating these massive commercial developments because of new tube lines. I see retail, I see information there. I see a way to build modular housing quickly, customized, designed in a factory and built on site, housing problems, boom. I see ways to cut through. And the one thing the citizens of London say when I'm on the streets with them is they say, Brian, we need an independent voice. We need someone to shake things up a little bit. There he is.
How are
David.
you?
I'm
How
great.
you doing?
I'm great, sir. It's great to see you. Not that you need an introduction, but everybody, this is Patrick Bet David, experienced and accomplished businessman, and also a very, very serious broadcaster, Valuetainment, one of the best channels out there. And you were on London Reel, what, over 2 years ago, maybe? You were in London. We had a great conversation.
One of my favorite interviews ever was with you, if not the best one ever.
Man, that's a strong words coming from a guy who's conducted some amazing interviews. So thanks. We went deep, man. It was really a real good experience having that chat.
I remember it like it was yesterday, and it was good times.
It was really good, man. It was really good. It's been fun watching you. You know, your recent book, Your Next 5 Moves, is on my Audible. So, and it's blowing up out there, and you're continuing to push the envelope with your guests. It's been great to see. You know, I've taken a break for the last few months of actually having guests because I've been, running to be the next mayor of London. So it's been nice to watch you because I miss having these conversations, to be honest.
I got to tell you though, watching you is, you and I haven't spoken, I don't know, since the last time I was in London, and maybe we've had some exchange here and there, but I've been obviously following. It's like the whole thing with Facebook. You may not see your family, but you see the pictures, kids growing up. But it's very interesting seeing you play offense and go up against a guy like Sadiq Khan in London, who I would say is probably a controversial figure. Is probably somebody that you and him could be on complete opposite ends when it comes down to beliefs and infrastructure, and seeing what you're trying to encourage people to do and consider, whether it's to make London more safe and minimize the amount of stats that you're seeing with knives and challenges people are facing and not feeling safe with their kids being out there. I mean, it's a scary sight to see the stats coming out. And, it's very exciting. I saw you going from you were 4th place, then 3rd place, then 2nd, and then your odds kept going low, higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And then the bus comes out, and then you're going talking to people. I got to tell you, it's been very exciting following your journey.
I try to think sometimes like Conor McGregor. I'm trying to give people a show here. And, Patrick, I don't think anyone's ever seen someone run for the mayor of London like we have. I mean, we had the biggest outdoor advertisement campaign in British political history, let alone mayor. I'm talking even for the national elections. We had these massive digital billboards. Obviously, I got this digital battle bus. I've driven now almost 5,000 miles just in London over the last 3 months. And I got a digital broadcasting studio in the back. So I'm literally there in 3 cameras going through the boroughs of London. I do these 90-minute broadcasts. I take questions from people on the streets as I go by. And man, no one's ever seen anything like it before. And I'm digitally transparent like you are. So I'm literally doing live chats. I'm taking live questions, hard questions. I'm out in the street talking to people. I'm blogging. And people are like, whoa, we're used to a politician. They show up 3 weeks before the elections here. They do a couple photo ops. They never talk to the public without their handlers. And then they go back to their offices and hide. And I'm out there, engaging with people. So honestly, Patrick, I think this is the new wave of politics. I think we're going to get to where it becomes more digitized, and the gatekeepers, which could have been newspapers, TV channels, or even political parties, maybe get removed a little bit, and you can take your message straight to the people. But it's also had challenges as well, to say the least.
So what's been the biggest challenge for you? I know. If I was following it at the beginning, you went out, you got fined, they shut you down a little bit, and then you were allowed to go back in there. But what's been the biggest challenge for you on your run here?
Honestly, Patrick, I've been in the business world for 30 years. You have as well. And I've been, I started in automotive, then went to aerospace, then went to Wall Street. I know you worked at Morgan Stanley as well, and then came over here. When you look at politics that way, nothing they do makes sense, because as an entrepreneur, you're always trying to add value to your customer. And if you're wrong, either you get eliminated or a competitor does it, and you learn. In politics, it seems that when you don't add value to the customer, you make excuses, you raise taxes, you ask for bailouts, and then you do a spin. You got this two-party system, which is an illusion of choice, I think. They kind of sign off on each other's failures and give you this choice every 4 or 5 years, but it's the same people in the background that get paid the salaries by the citizens. So getting my head around the fact that the mayor of London wasn't trying to support business people was hard. When I see him making decisions that seem to slow down the economy of London, that was hard. I recently was talking to someone and I said, London was built on business. The Romans didn't come here because of the view. They came here because there was commerce. And yet he seems to forget that tax revenues, everybody's well-being, education, and mental health is all based on getting back to work. So that was hard. I got shut down by the police I got banned from campaigning back in January, even though everything we were doing was completely COVID secure. So that was weird, the intimidation factor. And then the fact the mayor won't debate me. The BBC, our national broadcaster, won't invite me on for a debate, even though the bookies have me in second place. The polling companies, which are what I say is a 20th century instrument trying to monitor a 21st century phenomenon, they think I'm far back. But the bookies, where all the money is trading places, they've had me in second for a while. So, that's been interesting. Also, I had to study the problems of London. Patrick, I didn't really understand the problem with crime and housing and transport 8 months ago, but I spent 8 months working on it, and that's this manifesto. I think I sent you a digital copy. This is 50 pages of work, and I actually worked behind the scenes.
Very thorough.
You noticed that? Okay, yeah. I've had some people in Houses of Parliament that said it's the best manifesto they've ever seen, and I was like, wow. And so I'm trying not to do I'm trying not to do 5% better than the last guy that run. I'm just trying to totally break all the rules and say, how would I do this if I had to do the best possible job? So I worked with people behind the scenes in the House of Lords, senior members of the Metropolitan Police, senior members of Transport for London, top architects who's built my modular housing design and has actually mocked up what it actually looks like on the streets. And again, entrepreneurs, economists. So this document, I think, proves to people that I'm more than just the American in the loud suit, which is what I first come across as. But also there's been an awareness campaign because, no one had heard of me before from a political standpoint. I mean, Patrick, we ran the numbers on YouTube and 1.7 million Londoners had actually engaged with London Real before I started out of 9.5 million. So we have this awareness that the polls don't get either. I mean, my life has been on YouTube for 10 years. I meet people on the streets that saw my documentary film about doing an Ironman race, saw me being open and honest about my struggles with addiction and overdose, saw me doing all this stuff, and they're like, Brian, we know who you are. You're the guy that gave us David Goggins and gave us Dorian Yates and gave us Patrick Bet-David. Like, we've been watching what you've been doing for years, and yet my opponents think, oh, you're just another political candidate, but we're not. So it's been a real education process, to say the least. We're 13 days out now from the election, and it's like mayor season. Now the public starts to engage. And so there's media. We've been in places like the Evening Standard and the Times. This is what they call me, Patrick. This is the front page of the Evening Standard. The breakdancing ex-banker trying to be your next mayor. And they love my story with drugs. Again, I've been really honest on my channel, so they go right to the heroin overdose in 2001 in New York City, and I'm happy to talk about it. They got pictures of my wife and me in there. So you know, I'm probably the most interesting candidate, to say the least. The American accent comes ups a lot, but I've been here for 21 years. I've been a citizen for 14 years. My kids were born here. I plan on being buried here. So I'm a Londoner, is the way I feel.
Right.
So those are some of the things that have come up, Patrick. But you know, I don't know if you've ever considered running or looked into politics, but with an entrepreneur frame of mind, it can be a frustrating space to be around, you know, because it doesn't make sense maybe to a business person.
You know, the leaders bulletin in business is stuff you can see. It's visual. The leaders bulletin in politics, it's not visual. It's a lot of proxy, and the proxies you have to be careful with, because the proxies are, this guy owes that guy a favor, that guy owes this guy a favor, and you don't have any favors they owe you yet, or you owe them yet. So the people that owe them the least amount of favors, they want that person to win the least. It's a very, very interesting world to be in, specifically the one you're in. But I applaud you. You know, today I was just having breakfast with Nick McKinley. Lunch with Nick McKinley. Nick McKinley is the real life Jack Ryan. So if you know, if you've seen the movie Jack Ryan, I think Wired or Vice did a video on him, where he was a former CIA agent and he worked on all the crazy projects, and Amazon reached out to him to allow him to do the movie. We're together. He's been here in the office all morning long. And we were talking, and I said, so what direction do you think we're going right now with politics? He says, I think, you know, I like seeing more people who were former business owners who know what the market is really all about to run. I think it keeps everybody honest. We have too many people who don't know what real life is, real life business, and the challenges you have to go do that. What makes you a unique candidate is, here's a guy that's willing to talk about his challenges in '01. Here's a guy that break dances. Here's a guy that posts a video boxing and kicking. Like, what is this guy doing? What's he doing? Here's a guy that shows pictures with him and his kids. Here's a guy that interviews the most weird, random. One day it's a bodybuilder. One day it's a Marine. One day it's a social media influencer. One day it's an entrepreneur. One day it's a former criminal. Where is he going with this? But if there's one thing that's very obvious about you, is you're extremely detailed. You're extremely about doing your research when you're sitting down with somebody. A great interviewer is not a great interviewer because they wing it. A great interviewer is a great interviewer because before the interview, they spend hours researching the subject matter that they're sitting down with me, which means if you're going to run for mayor, I'm willing to bet you put hundreds of hours into that decision and the research and what things you would want to work on before you go run for it. And you have to realize, I don't think the audience fully realizes this. You know, anybody can, not anybody, it's easy to go be a mayor of a city with 5,000 people. Go be a mayor of a city with, 20,000 people, 50,000 people, 100,000 people. I mean, it's work. But let's say London was the former financial capital of the world, and New York City took it over. So London is like Mayor Giuliani type of thing. So if London had its own set of Mayor Giuliani, London has got a very good opportunity to take that financial capital away from who took it over, because we know what direction New York is going. So my presentation to the voters would also be, let's not forget just a few decades ago who was the financial capital of the world and who took it over. And let's not forget what direction New York is going right now, specifically with how they, handle COVID. And on top of how they handle COVID, how they're increasing taxes. And now the taxes that are going to be increasing in states after Biden introduced it yesterday. And the Senate has to still vote for it, where they want to raise corporate taxes from 21 to 28. And then they want to raise capital gains from 20 to 39.3, where in some states, the Reuters article said today that New York's taxes top line could be 68.2. But let's just say it's a 60% number we're talking about. A lot of people are going to be leaving New York, just like they already have. $400 billion of wealth has left New York the last 12 months. This is articles that I think it was even a New York Times article. The point I'm trying to make to you is, being a mayor of London, going up against who you're going up against, the way they mismanaged a lot of the things the last 12 months, I'm sure there are a lot of people that are probably rooting for you to win.
Yeah, you said it right there. I mean, first of all, I worked for 10 years in the city of London here in the financial center. It really is the engine of this city and somewhat the country. You know, it's responsible for a big chunk of GDP and a big chunk of tax receipts. And all those people are now working from home. And again, I'm not convinced the innovation happens when people are always working remotely as well. And so it's also, look at the cities and how safe they are. I mean, I lived in New York City for 4 years. I lived in California for most of my life. I would never move back to either one of those places right now if I move back to the US, which I won't be, but I wouldn't even consider it. And so I keep telling Londoners, we are poised to become the greatest city in the world. And you know, that's a weird thing for maybe to say here, and they're like, ah, you're being a little American here. But I'm like, no, we are. Actually, I'm being serious, because we actually haven't suffered from a lot of the issues you're seeing in America. We haven't seen the massive division. We haven't seen the attacks on the police here. You know, things are still doable. We have seen a shutdown and a lockdown, which I think, again, there could have been much more innovation here, Patrick. They just shut things down. A leader should innovate. With here, all they have was a hammer. Everything looks like a nail. It was a binary decision, on or off, when I think we could have done much more. But I'm seeing a city that could emerge as a leader in Europe, right now we're the second worst performing economy, biggest recession in 300 years, or a leader in the world. And like you said, look what we're competing with. I mean, raising taxes in the US, it's just the last thing you can do that is good for business. And so I'm telling Londoners, look what we could do to be proactive in rebuilding our city. One of my big policies is to do something called the Great Celebration in August, which is 31 days of street festivals, music fairs, show to the world that London is back for business. We put this period behind us, and we're going to start investing in ourselves. I want to bring 20 million people safely to the city and just show everybody we're back, and to show off what Britain, you know, used to lead the world in, right? Everything we did well, to remind everyone that we're still here. And I was speaking with one of the most senior members of the Metropolitan Police, and he said, Brian, you'll like this, Patrick. He said, Brian, do you know that most corporate CEOs have their home office where they live? And I was like, yeah, that's probably right. He said, so what do they need in that city? They need a safe city and a good place for their kids and their schools. He said, that's one of the driving factors of 50 to 60% of the choices of the CEOs. He said, a safe city is so important. A place like Sao Paulo might not get people moving their whole global offices to. So a safe city is good for long-term business as well. And we're suffering from knife crime. The last thing I would say in this journey is I've seen so many revenue streams pop out, whereas the two-party system, I mean, the current mayor, 18 years he's been a politician. Just like the previous mayor before him, he wants to become prime minister. This is a career for him. And so they're not thinking about the citizens, they're thinking about their next job. I see what is right now a bankrupt Transport for London, our tube network and bus network. I see revenue streams everywhere there, Patrick. I see infrastructure levies for creating these massive commercial developments because of new tube lines. I see retail, I see information there. I see a way to build modular housing quickly, customized, designed in a factory and built on site. Housing problems, boom. I see ways to cut through. And the one thing the citizens of London say when I'm on the streets with them is they say, Brian, we need an independent voice. We need someone to shake things up a little bit. Because right now it feels like this government's been in a time warp for 30 or 40 years. So yeah, that's the kind of vision I'm selling this city, is that we could be on top, but we might only have a 6 or 12-month window until the other cities get kind of maybe back in the game. We'll see when it comes to competing with America. But yeah, I've got some big ideas. And again, the knife crime here, it's almost shocking. You wouldn't expect a city like London to be dealing with something like that. We're 9.5 million people. The mayor's budget is 18 billion pounds. Like, this is a big job. You run the Metropolitan Police, the transport networks, and you're the thought leader for business, education, and all of that stuff. So yeah, you saw that manifesto. Londoners care about jobs, transport, housing, crime. And so, you know, what's funny is that when people see my excitement and they see the fact that I don't have a party, I don't have any corporate donors, I'm paying for this all by myself, Patrick, which in some senses is expensive, but in some ways I don't have to check with anybody about anything. And I don't have some backroom deal that I have to worry about that someone in Parliament told I don't care. I just want to go in and do the best thing long-term for my city, hopefully with like a 20-year horizon. I had a Zoom call the other night with a bunch of my advisors, and I said, guess what? If we do our job right, some other mayor is going to take credit for our work. I said, is everybody okay with that? And they all said yes. So I was like, I must be working with the right team. So, you know, that's where we're coming from. Again, I think everyone's a little surprised. We also put some, you know, videos out there. I call them informative videos, but they really go hard after the mayor's record on knife crime, housing, And I just don't think anyone's seen our video digital capabilities either. So it's been an interesting experience, to say the least, Patrick.
One is there's a couple things here. One is you gotta have a platform to have a voice. You got a voice at this point, period. I mean, during COVID, you were one of the guys that just boom, you went, and there was a month where everybody around the world was talking about you and what you guys were doing. London Real, every other media platform was writing articles about you guys. Brian Rose, and that went on for a while. So there is a voice. That's number one. Number two is your audience has trust. Number three, you have opposition. There are people that also don't like you, which is what you need. You don't need everybody, because those who don't like you also make your argument stronger if you're able to give your argument. But number four, which to me is one of the most important, is you're not just sitting there winging it, just saying, oh, vote for me, we're going to make London better, oh, vote for me. No, there is actually clear, crystal philosophy that you're presenting, and you have your offer on the table saying, if you vote for me, this is what I want to do. So there is nothing that's gray in the direction you're going for the voters and for the people of London. And on top of that, so those are things you control. Media, loyal believers, enemy, and then a crystal clear vision that you're casting, right? Those are things you control. Things you don't control. Last 12 months has not been the best for London. Let's face it. Last 12 months has not been the best for the mayor. The last 12 months, the mayor didn't win any votes. The last 12 months, the mayor didn't go from being, oh my gosh, what a great, and everybody around the world is talking about him and thinking about what a fantastic job he's doing. New York started off with Cuomo being a hero, not at the end of COVID. Newsom started off saying, what a responsible governor. He's got 2.3 million votes right now to recall in the state of California, two places you've lived in yourself, New York and California, right? DeSantis wasn't somebody anyone was talking about pre-2020. In 2019, the only people who knew DeSantis were people that lived in Florida, or were people that really followed the news. In 2021, everyone knows who DeSantis is because of how he handled COVID. Governor Abbott's name is dropped everywhere because of how they handled COVID. I think if there's ever been a time where a person like you can come out of nowhere, an underdog, and it's now. And it's going to be a very interesting next run you got. And, the best thing about this, the next, you said 12 days that's left, 13 days that's left. It's going to be interesting to see which true believers are going to come out of nowhere, who are influencers, who are saying, look, we got to figure this thing out. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of days you get some weird phone calls. And this is when some big names kind of call in and say, hey, you know what? We're not calling to give you money or anything. We're just kind of calling because we want to know the alternative, and your name is popping up. Can we have a meeting together? And when that happens, that's when some of the people of power behind closed doors are maybe testing out to see how serious you are, if this is just a marketing gimmick, or if you're really serious about it. And I don't think it would be a marketing gimmick with the amount of money you put into this thing, getting a buzz, getting, put in the work you're putting, 12-hour days, nonstop, back to back to back to back to back. So I think you're going to get the voice of some crazy people the next couple of days. If you get those phone calls next couple of days, that's how the momentum goes to the next level the next 12, 13 days.
As usual, Patrick, you are massively insightful. You're 5 moves ahead. That's just like your book, man. You really do see way ahead, don't you? And great observations. We know that both the Conservative and Labour Party have had serious discussions about me and what we're doing. We've seen them co-opting some of our policies and some of our tactics, or trying to, but they can't do it because they're not used to this medium. So when they try to, it's usually almost maybe worse than if they hadn't. And then again, you see the papers and stuff slowly coming on board, and we're getting featured in the Times and the Sun and the Evening Standard, but they took time and they wanted to test. And like you said, opposition is really important too. I get asked hard questions and they're like, can he answer them? British journalists, Patrick, they're ruthless is not the right word, but they will go straight for the throat. And the good news is that if you can handle it, then your stock goes up. The bad news is if you're not ready, you'll go crying and running away. And so it's been great practice to just really test my policies and my mettle. And a lot of people behind the scenes reached out. A lot of people behind the scenes reached out last year as well, Patrick. Like when we were really standing up and going hard, and you know,
Oh, yeah.
battling up against YouTube. I mean, I got contacted by so many people that are now supportive of the campaign in London. So that's been good. You're right. The next 2 weeks will be very interesting. And then what actually happens on the voting day, I think is going to shock the two-party system, because they're used to their polls predicting things. They're used to kind of having a handle on how these things sway, but they've never seen a candidate, I think, like that is this directly in touch with the people. You know, I can go directly to the people and give them my message. And again, I plan on taking all these digital networks right to City Hall with me, Patrick. London Real is just going to broadcast from there instead. It will just keep the transparency up. That's what we're thinking.
Listen, man, you got a cheerleader here. I'm rooting you on. We're following pretty much every chance I get to see where you're at. Every time my article pops up, you know, things you show, I get excited because I'd love to see what happens if look, the city, London, I came there. If you remember, I told you, I said, what a freaking ridiculous city. I mean, what a beautiful place. I'd never been there. First time I went there was simply for us to have a visit ticket. I fell in love with the city, the people, how they are dreamers, big thinkers. They want to compete again. You see some hungry people that show up that really want to go out and compete with other markets. And if we have somebody that's thinking in a sense of deregulation, in a sense of helping increase free enterprise, entrepreneurship, you know, selling the dream of what's possible, really, if, you know, London goes back to what helped them become the financial capital of the world, it's going to be very interesting. So I'm glad we had a chance to get on and catch up here of where you're at. Just know the fact that you got a Middle Eastern cheerleader in Florida that's rooting you on.
Look, I appreciate you, Patrick. And, you know, behind the scenes, you've always been massively supportive of me. You've always been offering me words of advice and support and help. So just want to publicly say how much I appreciate that. It's super powerful. And like, last question, how are you doing? Like, what's next with you? I just see you continuing to make big moves. You know, your book is amazing. Your events are amazing. You've got different video formats now. I love your podcast format with your guys and also your interviews. I know you found a new CEO for your business. So, like, what's your plan for the next 5 moves?
Obviously, media is a big part of it. You have to have a voice nowadays, because the dangers of media is when you're out there giving opinions, you're going to piss off some people. So they want to kind of hold you to the fire as well, which some people don't like that, because then you back there like, you know what, I'd much rather not create content because there's some people that disagree with me. But at the end of the day, if you really believe in what you're doing, you got to go out there and share your thoughts as well long term. So media is going to be a big part of it. Financial services, just like it changed your life, changed my life as well. I'm a guy that's grateful for what this industry did to me. But I'm in Florida now, so I'm running Valuetainment out of here. In the last 12 weeks, we've hired 18 new employees in Florida. We got 26 full-time employees now that are just doing Valuetainment here right outside my office. And then on the HP side, we've hired, I don't know, 4 new C-suite executives the last 4 months. And we're playing very aggressive on that end as well. And I'm still running both companies. But as a matter of fact, I have a Zoom right now to jump on right now with a bank that I'm having a conversation with at 2 o'clock my time. But we're playing offense. We're doing our best to kind of get a little bit more our vision out there. But just like you got some outlandish plans, like if you remember that one time you and I sat down together, I said, Brian, you either need your own show on TV because you're Hollywood, man. You belong on that big screen, or you're going to do something. I don't know what it is. You got way too much talent in there and the way you think and nothing wrong with being a YouTuber. I'm proud to create content on YouTube, but I think some people come out all of a sudden and the upside's bigger. You're one of those guys that I'm banking on doing some big things the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Thank you, Patrick. And you too as well. So thank you for everything you do. Let's hook up. Either I'm coming out to Florida to see you or you get to London. You come see me at City Hall next time. All right?
I definitely will. And you the same as well. I'm definitely looking forward to it.
All right. Fantastic. Follow this man, Patrick Bet-David, Valuetainment, next 5 moves. I appreciate you, sir. All the best.
Take care, buddy.
Right?
Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks so much. All right. Take care.